Good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the CAPitalist Caste. Joining me today is Senator Cris Dush. We are going to be talking about, the differences he's seen going from the House to the Senate, as well as what's been going on with the budget, as well as, basically whatever comes up this morning. I have had the privilege of knowing Senator Dush since he became a representative, which is just fantastic. So I'm really excited to see you, Chris. Senator Dush, can you tell us a little bit about your district? We were talking before we came on. Your Senate district is larger geographically than the state of Connecticut, which is just mind-boggling.
Yes, I have 7 complete counties within the district and part of an 8th. I've got over 10% of the counties, and we're all 50 senators. We've got allegedly about 250,000 constituents each, but to spread that out in the northern tier, to collect that number of constituents, you got to go far and wide. So it can be a 2.5, 3 hour drive from one corner of the district to another, but they're all fantastic people, and I enjoy what I do, but it does put the travel on me. I put about 60,000 miles on here in the last year.
And I just so people can visualize it. Pennsylvania is often it's often described as having kind of a T, and you have basically the top bar of the T. Not quite the entire thing, but pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much
as well as
third.
Yeah, the middle third of the state, which is it's amazing. And you also have a very famous constituent in Punxsutawney Phil. So I mean, you definitely, you have your pulse on what's going on. So I guess for starters, you spent you were in the House for 3 terms, right?
Yes, I had term limited myself, and had punched the exit button, and then found that the seat was going to be coming open about 2 months later.
Yeah, and the fact that you had, self-term limited and actually were sticking to that is pretty remarkable. We see a lot of people who come in and say, I'm only going to serve 3 terms, or I'm only going to serve 4 terms, and then that time rolls around and they decide, I'm going to stick around a little bit longer. And the fact that you were willing, you were honoring that is sadly not something that seems to be typical.
The Air Force core values, the first of it is integrity first.
Yeah.
Service before self and excellence in all we do. I try to still live up to all those.
So what have you seen? What have been some of the major differences you've seen as you've transitioned, from a member of the House to being a member of the Senate? What's that been like?
Well, on a personal front, the biggest change is that I'm getting to sleep at 10 o'clock at night instead of 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to sleep knowing that people are taking care of stuff. In the House, when I first came in, it was 120 members, between 110 and 120 on the Republican side, vying for the attention of staff members that are professionalized, meaning that they've got areas of expertise, whether it's local government, health, whatever. So you're competing for the attention of those people among 110 people. And in the Senate, I have a team of people actually working for me. The Senate is actually now starting to try and, as far as the executive director positions, have that more of a professionalized staff, which is something I'm very happy to see. I had after I won the election last year, one of the guys in the House, a staff member who's bounced back and forth between them, he said it used to be members would go from the House to the Senate and the chamber would change them. Now it seems like the members are going over and the members are changing the chamber. And I think it'll be done in some good ways. And both in the House and the Senate, some of these newer members that are coming in are real fighters. People who are coming in with experience in the real world. They're not coming straight out of college into government positions, that sort of thing. So they have, they're bringing more expertise and a broader expertise into the arena, and that's something I'm grateful for. So, but Yeah, the enlarged territory, because I used to get around to, I had, my House district was the fifth largest, and I had 50 municipal governments. In the course of 2 years, I could probably get around to about 47, 48 of their meetings. I now have over 250. There is no way even in 4 years I'm going to get to all of them. But I'm already working with my counties, and we're looking to have some more meetings where I can bring all the township supervisors or all the boroughs in and have meetings with them so that it's an effective use of my time. I'm still going to pop in from time to time if I'm in the area and going between meetings or wrapped up for the day, but I've still got an extensive travel time. And there's a school board meeting or a township or a borough meeting that's on my calendar. I'll make sure I'm pop in, sit and listen to what's going on, because that's how you get a pulse for how the state and federal governments are impacting the lives, and the municipal governments as well.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I mean, a very kind of common thing that people will talk about is unfunded mandates and things of that nature. But to actually see what the cost of an unfunded mandate is, not only in terms of strict dollars, but in terms of personnel costs and things of that nature, it's a very different perspective when you're hearing firsthand from the people who are having to deal with whatever mandates are being handed down from the state or federal level.
It's very impactful on small. I mean, I've got some counties or some municipal governments that are only in the tens of thousands of dollars on their tax revenue. And you have things like payment in lieu of taxes, where I have some counties that it's upwards of 60% of the land is owned by the county, owned by the state or the federal government. And the payment in lieu of taxes, you're only looking at $2 an acre for whatever municipality it is. It's $6 total. But between the school, the local, and the county, they're each getting $2 each. That doesn't help run a municipal government. The schools, beyond the administrative burden, you have the intrusion into the classrooms with all these sound good programs, but they're not what is necessary for a child to learn in order to be successful out in the real world, and to also to develop critical thinking skills. There's more, it's become more indoctrination than education. And a lot of these programs, they seem, there are a lot of what feel good ideas, but when the teacher loses control of the classroom or the curriculum, it's not a good thing.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, I know that when you look at the structure of the House and the Senate, each is set up, you have the leadership. So in the Senate, we're talking about the president pro tempore, the majority leader, and then you get down into the committees. As a member of the House, there's really the only way to become a committee chairperson is basically to outlast a whole bunch of other people. When you're coming into the Senate, it's fascinating because you're almost guaranteed, either a chairmanship or a vice chairmanship in your first term. What does that do in terms of the amount of responsibility that you have to deal with, and how does that also impact the how you can change the conversation about a particular issue?
Well, I would like to see over in the House side, we have people, as I said, to come in with a very broad. There are so many different perspectives that come in from the different career fields that people have chosen. If we bring somebody in who's got a level of expertise within a certain area, I think there should be some weight given in the selection process of who is a committee chairman based on that. But when the amount of weight one brings when you're in the Senate, because there are fewer of us, the discussions, it seems to me I'm getting more, I'm taken more seriously. I don't know if it's because of the method by which I ended up in the chamber, or the fact that I've had experience over in the House as well. But it seems people give more weight to what I'm saying whenever I'm talking. So there's that is something I would say does happen. I don't know if, like I said, I've got a rather unique story behind my election process and everything. So I can't comment if that's the same for everybody, but
right. So I guess let's kind of jump into the budget a little bit, because I would really see that as being a place where you do have more of an outsized influence when it comes to how you're able to impact things. What has the budget process been like this year? I know that there have been, hearings. It seems like it's never ending in terms of the departments that come in. But what have you seen, like through the process so far? What are some things that have kind of opened your eyes, and what are some items that you really want to get some more information about before they start putting numbers on paper for funding some of these departments?
One of the frustrations I had in the House, I wasn't a member of the Appropriations Committee, but as I was watching the appropriations hearings, is members are only given 5 minutes to talk or to ask questions. Unfortunately, in both chambers, a lot of members will do a lot of pontificating, and they're not really asking questions, or they'll between their speech and the follow-up, there's only the ability to do one question. I am a results and an information type person. It's frustrated me to great ends that I only have that limited amount of time. There are some trails I'd like to follow up on and pursue, but we're not really given the opportunity. And it gives the appearance to one who might be on the outside looking in that it's a very pro forma process. And I tend to agree with that. But we're starting to see, again, some changes. Came back for second rounds of questioning on some events, but the whole idea that somebody basically pulls a Jen Psaki, I'll get back with you on that. And then we're asking the same question year after year after year. I will say that with the Auditor General and Treasurer that we have now, we've got a lot more transparency in the process. Treasurer Garrity is putting a new link on the transparency portal effective July 1st, that with Ledger 5, which I've been dying since the 2015 budget impasse to get somebody on the record about Ledger 5. It's a mechanism for moving money back and forth. And you can see her testimony when I questioned her on this. Whenever the government overspends is one of the areas. And it moves from special accounts sometimes into the general fund. And we're going to have some transparency in place there. And she and I and some others are working for additional transparency measures that will put it out there. So I'll have 250,000 sets of eyes, my constituents, looking at this stuff if they want, and then getting the information back. If they see something that I miss, it's important that the public be aware and capable of seeing what's going on with their government. I think we've got a great chance here.
Yeah, and I think it's important because there are so many kind of weird concepts when it comes to government funding. I mean, balanced budgets just aren't necessarily a thing, even if they're balanced on paper. It involves a lot of money moving around and things moving to places that you wouldn't necessarily suspect. So just so I have a clear understanding of the Ledger 5, if I were to put it in terms of almost like a household budget. So I'm sitting down, I have my budget laid out for the month. I'm starting to run short. So what I do is I notice that I'm not going to have enough money to make a payment, at the end of the month. So it would basically be like moving money from almost like a line of credit into my account to make the payment. Would that be somewhat accurate? I know it's not exactly right, but.
Yeah, that's about as close as you're going to get because these aren't lines of credit. The money has been allocated into these special funds for set legislative purposes.
Right.
But it's almost like borrowing. If you got a Christmas account, another savings account, a fund for your child, for like the TAP funds, then all of a sudden you're borrowing from that, or you're borrowing from a retirement account and then
Okay.
putting it back over.
So it really is something where, having the ability to see that money moving online, there are going to be some practical implications for that. Like you said, just being able to see the money is a big thing. But as you are looking at, this money moving around, what is that going to enable you to do as you're dealing with, department heads and things of that nature?
Well, it sets the alarm bell off. Number one, that department is spending more money than the legislature authorized, and quite often it's more money than the governor or even the department has requested. So we need to use that properly, and as soon as we have that information, start acting immediately to address the overspend. So it's going to be important to have those early warning bells out there that the treasurer is offering us with the transparency portal.
Yeah, and I think because when you look at last year at the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken, it was close to 900. It was over $800 million that was overspent in the previous year. And I mean, that's an astronomical amount of money.
Well, yeah, and we need to be aware of that because we're going to be asked to do a supplemental appropriation for them. And in order to do that, we've got to come up with the money from someplace. So it's been one of the big frustrations has been there's been on that human services side. The federal government made it a requirement that once somebody is on Medicaid for any reason during this declaration of emergency, they can't come off of it. So even if it's fraud, if it's somebody qualified and then did what was necessary to get off of it, they're still going to continue on it. And it's costing the taxpayers, like I said, it's probably 600 million of that 900 million is from that.
Wow. And that's just a single line item causing, 2/3 of a budget overspend. And that's remarkable.
It's massive. It's had a huge impact on us this year.
Are there any items that you're looking at that you would like or that you would hope to see addressed, as the budget is moving forward? What are if you had a wish list, what would be on that wish list of budget items to get taken care of? Not that I want you to show your hand, in the negotiations,
No.
but I'm just curious.
I would like to see both chambers sitting down and going through the books on the expenditures and some transparency out there to where we can actually see what's going on. Of anything that's going that would make me happy, it's having that ability for not only me but for my constituents and people around the state to take a look at that and start identifying where the expenditures are going. At some point, I'd like to see us have an open checkbook so that whenever every check that's written, it's out there. I don't care if it's my reimbursements.
Right.
Put it all out there so everybody can see it. And then people can ask some pointed questions. And I like pointed questions. I don't mind getting them. A lot of people do. But, that's what we're here for. So that's my biggest ask.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because particularly as it relates to the budget process, what it's important to keep in mind, and it's really frustrating, particularly being someone on the outside, and I would imagine it's frustrating being on the inside. It really seems like as the budget hearings progress, after the budget hearings are done, you'll have 3 or 4 members, in each chamber sit down and just kind of devise whatever the spend is going to be, and then that's presented and said, "Hey, this is what the budget is." And it really seems like, despite all of the hearings, there doesn't seem to be a lot of input when it actually comes to the output that comes out. It's almost a take it or leave it approach.
It comes down to that at the time when it comes down to the time to vote, and it has been a frustration for the last 6 years. Now that I'm in the Senate, I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how we approach that after the hearings are finished. I'm hoping to see us have some in-depth discussion on the various line items.
So talk a little bit about which committees are you on at this point, and what is your role in those committees?
Well, I'm chairman of the local government committee and vice chair of state government. I'm also on Veterans Affairs and a few other committees that right now I'm drawing a mental block on. But I do have a lot of ability to contribute in the committees where I'm not the chair. But as chair of local government, I'm looking forward to what we can do to accomplish. I'm working with the Local Government Commission, and Tim Carney over on the Democrat side, the minority chair, seems pretty reasonable, and I think we're going to get along well on that, or as far as getting things through with the local government. And I'm planning on taking it on the road from Chester City to West Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, Lawrenceville over around Pittsburgh, and into the coal mining towns in central Pennsylvania. I want to have members from both parties out and seeing that, there's a whole lot that we've got that's similar. The state impact on local government is pretty remarkable, and I'd like to get the opportunity to let members see that it impacts everybody. It's not just a certain area.
So in the scheme of things, when the local government committee is looking at an issue, what are you typically, how does that then translate into something that affects, obviously, local government? Can you give us an example?
One of the things that I've got a piece of legislation on vexatious request for the right to know. We've got some people out there. The right to know request is a very important tool, and we've got there are some inmates that make it's a avocation for them. They're in there writing right to know requests left and right. You've got people that have lost elections in local government that are persistently asking for one thing after another. I mean, there's some times where it might be critical that the people get to know the information, but then there are some other issues where you can tell that it's just there's a vendetta kind of there, and that costs the local government money. We're looking at making it so that if after a certain number of requests, they can refer it to the right to know office, and the right to know office can do a bit of an investigation and make a determination as to whether or not this person is a vexatious requester, and just ban them for a period of time from submitting more requests, so that, like I said, if you get 4 or 5 people like that, it can tie some of these local governments up, because there's a lot of research that goes into a lot of these.
Right.
So we'll propose it over here. It'll go through the local government committee, then out to the floor for a vote. If it passes, it goes over to the House, where it'll go through local government again, and then back to the full floor. And If it passes both chambers, it'll go up to the governor for a signature. If they make some changes over there, it has to come back over the Senate, repeat the process
Right.
in the Senate chamber, and then out to the governor. So
yeah. Hey, I had a comment here that came up in our comments on Facebook. It's actually somebody wanting to know about not raising taxes, and I think that brings up a great point about the budget. How the heck are you guys going to pay for it?
Well, the federal government's printing money for us right now, and they're sending it. That's the only thing that's really saving us right now. But it's not saving the taxpayer, because, quite honestly, the taxpayers are going to be on the foot or on the hook from the federal level. So we're working on some things. I'm a member of the American Legislative Exchange Council, and we're working on some Article 5 stuff under the U.S. Constitution to put the brakes on the federal government as well. Pennsylvania is already a signer to the balanced budget amendment under Article 5. If we get to the point where enough states do the petitions, we can put a block to that. But we have to live within our means. It was 2015, I think it was, I posted to I was a former member of AFSCME, and when the contract came out raising salaries, $900 million between AFSCME and SEIU, I posted before the election on the vote by the members asking them not to do it. And then I posted the salaries from 2000 and 2015 from the master agreement. It was 23% more to replace an employee at the S4 pay range, but that employee, if he didn't take any pay raise at all, was making 43% more. And the median income in Pennsylvania dropped $85 in that period, but in my district it dropped $1,143. So what the governor was asking the people to do who are making less was pay their employees more. That math doesn't work.
Right.
So it was amazing. At first I had a couple people post some pretty nasty stuff, but then they immediately pulled it down because it wasn't me. It was their family members, their friends, their neighbors were saying, "Hey, what are you making those comments about? I lost my job. I lost my insurance. I haven't had a pay raise in 15 years, and you're making 43% more." It was that kind of thing that, and that's the kind of transparency I want. I want us to start showing that, we've got to live within our means, because we can't keep taking more from our constituents when they're earning less.
Yeah. And there's another comment on here about the Taxpayer Protection Act.
Yes.
So could you explain for folks who aren't familiar with it, the Taxpayer Protection Act would limit the growth of spending to the rate of inflation plus population growth. Pennsylvania's year-over-year budgets very rarely adhere to anything approaching that.
Not even close.
We need that. Yeah, we absolutely need that. And the other thing that's important, and this is, what you had brought up earlier with regards to supplemental spending, what'll happen is, in one fiscal year, they'll overspend by $800 million. And then they will count that overspending to decide what the increase in spending is going to be for the following year. So you're not actually increasing it over the previous year's approved budget. You're increasing it over what the overspending actually was. So the numbers are just completely out of hand.
And when they turn around and the people who are arguing for that will say, "Well, you're cutting the budget." And no, we're not cutting the budget. We're more than likely increasing the budget, but we're not increasing it to the level of the overspend, or we're not the overspend plus the typical 3.5% to 8%.
Yeah, it's amazing. Government is the only place where you can hold someone's funding flat or make it equal to the previous years and be accused of cutting a budget. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's completely disingenuous, but it happens every budget cycle.
Yep. If you don't mind, I'd like to, the upcoming election here in May, the ballot questions.
This is a great place to end. This is perfect.
There's a reason we voted. I voted for yes on all three of those. The first two have to deal with the governor's ability to continue a disaster declaration without consultation with anybody. I mean, the impacts and the things that were going on through his executive orders impacted 13 million people without any consultation from any outside experts, without consultation with the legislature, who is dealing with constituents that are suffering under those edicts. This is meant to bring the governor to the table, to allow some discussions with the legislature and those who have areas of expertise. And the third component, the change of the Constitution to for non-discrimination based on race or ethnicity. We've got a long history especially in my area. We were part of the Underground Railroad. I had two judges. We have two townships named after two judges that were actually convicted for helping the runaway slaves. We need to be focused on the fact that we were made in the image of God, not race or where we came from and where our families came from. So all three of these are good amendments to have placed into the Constitution, and both for the sake of accountability on the part of the executive branch and making sure that Pennsylvania lives up to William Penn's vision for this Commonwealth.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect place to end. So anybody who just is catching the end of this, go back and watch the beginning, but also make sure on May 18th to go out and vote in favor of the constitutional amendments that you'll see on the ballot. And those you are able to vote on those amendments even if you are not registered as a Democrat or a Republican. If you're an unaffiliated or a third party member of a third party, you can still go out, get your ballot, and make sure that you're voting in favor of those constitutional amendments.
That's correct.
Again, Senator Dush, thanks very much. I know you are a very busy person having to traverse an area the size of Connecticut. So taking some time out of your day today, we certainly appreciate it. And I look forward to having you on again. Maybe after the budget process is up, we can kind of pick it apart a little bit and see what happened.
All right, Leo, I'd look forward to it. Thank you.
Take care, sir.
You too.